I never thought a single conversation could change the rest of my life. It's been 8 months since Ryan left, and I'm still sitting in this tiny, one-bedroom apartment that smells like dust and stale coffee. My phone screen glows in the dim light, my thumb mindlessly swiping through old photos I should have deleted months ago. There's Ryan, tall, warm smile, eyes that could cut right through me when I was lying. And right beside him, in almost every other picture, is Jason. My Jason. My best friend since I was 12. The person I swore was like a brother to me. The photos feel different now. Back then, they were snapshots of the people I loved most. Now they're just evidence. I used to think I was open-minded. That love didn't have to follow rigid rules or traditions. That sharing your heart with more than one person, emotionally, at least, wasn't betrayal, but strength. But I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. Because somewhere between casual inside jokes and long nights talking over wine, I convinced myself that Jason could, and should, be part of my marriage. Not in the way people might assume, or maybe exactly in the way they'd assume, depending on who you ask. It wasn't about sleeping together. It was about the closeness. The comfort. The fact that Jason could finish my sentences, remember my coffee order from high school, and pick up on my moods without me saying a word. Ryan had that once, too. But marriage is work, and sometimes life dulls the spark. Jason was where I could recharge. I thought Ryan would understand. I thought, maybe, he'd see that Jason wasn't a threat, that we could be a sort of team of 3. I thought it sounded progressive, healthy even. Instead, it broke him. He didn't yell. He didn't call me names. He just shut down. Then one day, he was gone. No warning, no fight, just a short note on the kitchen counter. You wanted Jason in your marriage. Now it's just you and him. I found out later he'd blocked me on everything, my number, social media, even my work email. His family wouldn't return my calls. And he moved to a different city, one I've never even been to. I keep asking myself, was it emotional cheating? Was it selfishness? Or was it just me being naive enough to believe love could be limitless? It started as a joke over wine, but it ended with me watching the man I love walk away without even looking back. Ryan and I had been married for 5 years when everything started to shift. We'd built a comfortable life, a cozy 2-story house, matching coffee mugs, a Sunday morning routine that felt almost sacred. He knew the way I liked my toast slightly burnt. I knew he'd never admit to crying during movies even though I'd catch him wiping his eyes. But I've always had close male friends. It's just how my life unfolded. And Ryan, well, he tolerated it. At least, that's what I told myself. Then there was Jason. Jason had been in my life long before Ryan, since we were awkward 12-year-olds who bonded over being the last 2 kids picked in gym class. We'd survived each other's bad breakups, celebrated every milestone, and been the kind of friends who could go months without seeing each other but pick up right where we left off. When I say we were close, I mean it. We texted almost every day. We had a dozen inside jokes that no one else understood. Sometimes, if we stayed out late watching movies or talking, I'd just crash at his place. It was innocent, in my mind, at least. Ryan never told me not to see Jason, but I noticed the way he'd go quiet when Jason's name popped up on my phone during dinner. How he'd offer a polite but tight smile when Jason joined us for outings. He was never rude, just distant. I chalked it up to insecurity. He's like a brother, I'd reassure Ryan. You don't need to feel threatened. I genuinely believed that. Jason was my safe place for the parts of me Ryan didn't quite connect with, my obsession with old indie films, my need to overanalyze conversations, even venting about little things Ryan did that annoyed me. One night, the 3 of us had dinner together at this little Italian place. We were halfway through our wine when Jason smirked and said, "Well, if Ryan ever messes up, you know I'm here." I laughed, probably louder than I should have. I didn't even notice Ryan's jaw tighten, or the way he went quiet for the rest of the night. A few weeks later, Jason and I had what I jokingly called a girls' night: wine, pizza, and deep talks about love and relationships. Somewhere between the second and third glass, I looked at him and said, "You're basically part of my marriage anyway." He laughed. I laughed. It was just a joke. Or at least, that's what I thought. Later that week, I repeated it to Ryan, thinking it was quirky and maybe even flattering, like proof of how progressive and open-minded I was. I didn't see the flicker in his eyes. I didn't see the hurt. Not yet. Over the next few months, Jason started showing up in more and more parts of our life, not intentionally, at least not in my mind, but because I kept inviting him. Movie nights at home. Jason would swing by with extra snacks. A weekend trip to the mountains. I'd tell him to come along so Ryan could have a buddy to talk to while I took photos for my travel blog. Even our late-night talks in bed, the ones that used to be sacred between Ryan and me, started to include little bits of Jason. I'd tell Ryan about something Jason said, something Jason thought, something Jason recommended we do as a couple. One afternoon, Ryan came home from work early. I was in the kitchen with Jason, music playing, a pot of pasta boiling on the stove. We were laughing so hard I didn't hear the door open. I was wearing one of Jason's hoodies, not because I meant anything by it, but because I'd spilled wine on my shirt earlier and he'd tossed it to me. The second I saw Ryan standing in the doorway, I felt the shift. He didn't say a word, just dropped his keys into the bowl on the counter and went upstairs. Later that night, I brought it up. I told him, half seriously, half teasing, that I wanted Jason to be more involved in our marriage. That he should help us make big decisions, be there for important milestones, maybe even have more sleepovers at our place so we could all spend more time together. Ryan stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "Are you in love with him?" he asked. I laughed, a little too quickly. "No. God, no. You're being ridiculous. It's not like that. Have you ever been physical with him?" "Ryan, seriously. You're just jealous because he understands me in ways you don't." That landed like a slap. The real breaking point came at our annual holiday gathering. Friends were crowded around the living room, champagne flutes in hand, when Jason raised his glass. To Ryan and Emily, and to being the third wheel that's basically welded to the marriage. The room laughed. I laughed. I even clinked my glass against his. But Ryan's face, it was like watching a door slam shut. He left without a word. When he finally came home that night, he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just said, "You've already chosen him over me, maybe not physically, but in every other way that matters." I told him he was overreacting. The next morning, his side of the closet was empty. On the kitchen counter was a single note in his handwriting: "You wanted Jason in your marriage. Now it's just you and him." The silence was deafening. Within 24 hours of Ryan leaving, his number stopped working. His social media disappeared from my friends list. Every message I sent came back with the same cold notification: "This user cannot be reached." Even his work email bounced. When I called his mother, the line went to voicemail. I left a tearful message. She never called back. I tried his sister, straight to voicemail again. By the third day, I understood. It wasn't just Ryan who had shut me out. His entire world had. Jason was the only person still picking up my calls. At first, he was sympathetic, even tried to distract me with takeout and bad movies. But something was different. The conversations felt strained, like we were both avoiding a subject neither of us wanted to name. He didn't sit as close on the couch. He didn't stay as late. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake replaying every moment, every time Ryan's face had fallen when I laughed at one of Jason's third wheel jokes. How many times had he told me he felt like I shared more with Jason than with him? How often had I brushed it off as jealousy instead of the warning it really was? Friends had their opinions, of course. Some said Ryan was too insecure, that a confident man wouldn't feel threatened by a friendship. Others weren't so gentle. One told me flat out, "You built a marriage for 3 people when there were only supposed to be 2. And the truth. Deep down, I knew they were right. 2 weeks after Ryan left, Jason came over for coffee. He looked uncomfortable, almost guilty. I should tell you something. I've been seeing someone." I forced a smile. "That's great, Jace." He went on, "She's amazing. I'm going to be spending more time with her, so I might not be around as much." It was like the floor gave way under me. I had lost my husband, and now the person I thought would always be my constant was quietly stepping away too. That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at the empty chair where Ryan used to read the paper every morning. For the first time, I felt the full weight of what I'd done, and the crushing truth that no one was coming back. It had been 6 months since Ryan left, but in my mind, it still felt like yesterday. I'd gotten used to the ache, the way his absence filled every corner of my apartment. Life had settled into a quiet, almost mechanical routine. Wake up, work, eat alone, scroll through old photos until my eyes burned. Then one Saturday morning, fate decided to twist the knife. I was at the grocery store, head down, debating between 2 brands of coffee when I heard my name. I looked up to see Ryan's cousin, Melissa. She froze for a moment, then smiled politely. We hadn't spoken since the split. We made awkward small talk, weather, work, how fast time flies. Then, mid-sentence, she dropped it like it was nothing. "Oh, I guess you've heard Ryan's engaged." The words hit me like ice water. My grip on the coffee jar tightened. "Engaged?" Melissa nodded, almost cheerfully. "Yeah. Her name's Claire. Sweet girl. She values privacy and boundaries, which I think is exactly what Ryan needed after, you know." My stomach twisted. Melissa kept going, as if she wasn't shredding me with every word. "He told us, I learned the hard way not to let anyone else into the relationship but the 2 people in it. Claire's the one. He's happier than I've ever seen him." I stood there, nodding like I agreed, but inside, it felt like my lungs had collapsed. In that moment, it hit me, Ryan hadn't just moved on, he'd used our marriage as a cautionary tale. I wasn't a heartbreak he needed to heal from. I was a mistake he needed to make sure never happened again. Melissa went on to say he'd moved across the country. New city. New job. New life. He'd even made sure his contact information and location stayed private. Not because he was afraid of me showing up, but because he'd made it impossible for me to. When she finally walked away, I just stood there in the coffee aisle, staring at the rows of jars like they might give me answers. I had thought losing Ryan meant losing the chance to fix what I'd broken. But this was different. He didn't want fixing. He didn't want me. He wanted a life where I didn't exist at all. And the cruelest part. He had it. I used to think being open was the highest form of love. No boundaries, no walls, no rules, just trust. I thought that was the modern, enlightened way to be married. But now I understand something I wish I'd known before I lost everything. Being open doesn't mean letting anyone and everyone into your relationship. It means keeping it strong enough to protect the sacred space between the 2 of you. When I pulled Jason into our lives more and more, I told myself it was harmless. That it was proof of how secure Ryan and I were. But the truth? Jason was my emotional crutch. I leaned on him for things I should have been sharing with my husband. Every private joke, every late night talk, every time I vented to Jason instead of to Ryan, I was choosing someone else over the man I promised to put first. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, subtle, almost invisible. Until one day, Ryan realized that while he was my husband in name, Jason was the person I turned to when it really mattered. That realization must have hurt more than I ever allowed myself to imagine. I used to scoff at the idea of lines in a marriage. I thought they were old-fashioned. But I see now, that line between us and the rest of the world is what makes a relationship special. It's the invisible fence that says, this is ours. This is sacred. And once you erase that line, you can't just draw it back. Ryan didn't fight for me because, in his mind, there was nothing left to fight for. He walked away, built a life without me, and made sure it was a life where I could never follow. And from what I've heard, he's happier now. That's the part one can't shake. He's happier without me, and I'm still here, learning too late that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's just an invitation for it to fall apart. So now I'm left with a question. Not just for myself, but for anyone who hears this story. If your partner wanted their best friend to be part of your marriage, would you see it as an act of love, or would you see it for what it might really be? A betrayal in disguise.